Hello, lovely people. My name is Neha, and welcome to Dropping Your Armour, where we listen to stories from thinkers, doers, and dreamers, all in the hope of unlocking our infinite human potential. In this episode, you'll hear the story of Marie-Louise Howett. She's the Chief Human Resources Officer at Cint, which is a global software leader in digital insights gathering. She's had a spectacular career in human resources spanning more than 20 years across the technology, industrial, pharmaceutical, and medtech sectors. And before Cint, she led the people and culture agenda at Unilabs, Assa Abloy, Roche, and GE. In addition to her super impressive professional credentials, she is, and really, I can say this with my whole heart having known her for a couple of years now, she is a person of integrity, care, humor, and a lot of hard work. I am so grateful for this conversation with her. Amid the current skepticism regarding corporate life, with so many people resigning from their jobs, we wanted to get real about corporate careers. With her own story as a helpful guide, we discuss the decisions and sacrifices that one might make to have a successful career. However, that success may be defined. So no sugarcoating, no romanticizing. Marie-Louise is a truth seeker and a truth teller. So get ready for some real talk. Hey Marie-Louise, I'm so happy to have you in Dropping Your Armour. Thank you for joining. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. And before we get started, do you want to say a couple of sentences about yourself, who you are, what you do, and what's your mission in life?
Absolutely. So my name is Marie-Louise Howett. I am a mother of three girls. I am married. I live in Stockholm in Sweden, and I have a fantastic job. I'm very happy to actually say that I'm the CHRO of a big global company called Cint. So it's actually, now I think I'm in my dream job, if I can say that.
Ah, that is awesome. And we'll learn more about your dream job and, your journey to it in a moment. But before we do, we always start with a little bit of a check-in. And I have a very interesting question for you over here. If you could write one book, any book, what genre would it be and what would the title be?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. Yeah, if I could write one book, I think if I wrote a book, it would be a funny book anyway. I like reading books that make me smile and that, makes me laugh out loud. So it'd be definitely a funny book. But if I have to be specific, I would write an autobiography and I would make the title. What would I put as a title? It would be A Lot in a Small Package.
Oh, that is funny. Okay. That is also funny because you cannot see Marie-Louise, and I think this is a podcast, but it's also funny because she's like super petite and cute, and there's just a lot to her, so that's why I'm laughing so hard. I
Yeah, it's
love that.
actually, it's funny, Nia, someone said that to me. There's so much of you, but in such a small package, someone said to me, early on in my career. So that's what I would use as a title.
I like that. It's also funny. Yeah, in keeping with the theme of your book. I think for me, I really struggle with this question because, the advice, write what you know. Um, and I know different things about different things, but I'm at the point in my life where I think I have more questions than answers. So I think for me, that book will be a book of questions that sort of I'm struggling with right now or wondering about or some stuff that keeps me up at night. And the title that I would want to use for it is metanoia. And I love that word. It signifies change in someone's thinking and perception, and it's more like a deep spiritual sort of change that you experience. And yeah, I decided to follow another advice that is frequently given to book writers, which is write the book that you really need. And I think I would really need that book. So.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Mm.
Cool. So let's learn a little bit more about you. And I know you said that you're now in this dream job of yours, and you're the CHRO of this amazing company. What brought you here? What was the story and the journey that you took to reach this point in your life?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is a big question. Um, Yeah, a little bit about my background. I mean, in a very short version, probably. I mean, I grew up in um, a small town in Sweden. I didn't grow up in Stockholm, so I come from a small town south of Stockholm, actually, a few hours south of Stockholm. But I think I come from a fairly traditional family. And in that, in traditional sense, I mean, I had my dad was working and my mother was a stay at home mother. So that's how I grew up. I had, sister and a brother, both older. And, it was a kind of a good way to grow up. And I think I a lot of the things that I did, in my early days also kind of impacted the way I've kind of approached my career and my life in general. And I think, one of the things looking back for sure is, I probably felt that I needed to see something else than just, where I came from and what I did and, the society I lived in. So that also kind of made me curious about life outside, and to move abroad and do different things and try new things. So this kind of curiosity to learn and see new things that come also from that, the fact that I grew up in a small place.
That's really interesting. And you said that a lot of this early upbringing had an impact on how you chose to sort of lead your career and the rest of your life. How so? Can you share some examples?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think, like I said, I probably come from what I call a traditional home, if you want, and I think looking at my dad, and I probably got the work ethic from him. Um, he was also someone who worked really hard, and he kind of kept at it, even though it was sometimes really difficult, because work is it is difficult sometimes, but I think he stayed with it. And I think he only had one sick day in his whole life. So he's actually only took one sick day in all his career. So you keep at it even though it's very difficult. And I think he also said, do your best, always try to do your best and be proud of what you do, regardless of what you do, what kind of profession you choose. But, keep at it and, be proud of what you do. And I think that's something I have with me. And, also, thought about a lot in my career. And in moments where it's really, really difficult and you probably want to kind of give up and, you're not doing your best, but kind of you say to yourself, no, stick with it, try your best and be proud of what you do and the results you see.
Oh, that's really important, right? Having that early sort of role model in your life to help you navigate. I think that really resonates with me. Also, with my background and my father also worked really, really very hard, and my mom was more of on the creative side of things. And I feel like somehow in the work that I do right now, I imbibe both of those qualities. Maybe not in equal measure, but still, um, yeah. And it really does shape my worldview right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And maybe then, fast forwarding to the time when you were just about to enter the world of work, what was that time like for you? And what were some of the questions that you were, confronted with?
Oh my God. Yeah, it's a long time. I've had a long career, a fantastic career. It's 20 years. And I always kind of think, oh my God, I'm becoming a senior. But it's cool as well. I like being a senior in a sense and having all that experience. But I started my career. I've always had, been quite focused and set goals for myself. I've had objectives, and I don't really have a mission in life. I think it's just more my general approach and attitude to life and working life. So I've always kind of set goals for myself, and I think early on I also had things that I wanted to achieve or quite ambitious. And I think when I set out my career, I mean, I got the chance to work for very good companies, highly respected companies. And, that gave me the opportunity to really build my experience and my skill set, I think, to learn from the best and learn in a great environment, kind of best in class, if you want, which was really, really good. But I think, again, I, had the opportunity to get into a position that also, wasn't maybe great at the start. It was a really, really good job. I was super happy to get it, but also through really showing interest and, again, being open minded and curious, that kind of opened up other doors and allowed me to take big steps, maybe too big of a step in the beginning. But it really kind of made me, go from one place to the next. So that was great.
Okay, so I'm really interested now when you said maybe even too big of a step. What was that? What's the story there?
Yeah, and the thing is, I've always kind of had the thing of saying yes. I'm kind of, take the chance. Have courage to say yes. I think that early on in career, you need to do that. Be again, willing to say yes more than no. And I think, I said yes, and really wanted to kind of progress my career. And I remember I got into this great HR manager role at the time. I was early in my career, young professional, and I got into this leadership team, and there was a lot of more seasoned managers in that team. And here am I, HR business partner or HR manager. And I remember we had leadership meetings on Mondays, and every Sunday for a long time, I had the Sunday blues, as I call them. I was sitting there really kind of anxious and worried about that leadership meeting that we had on Mondays, because I really didn't feel equipped in dealing with the questions that came, or that context, and maybe being kind of pushed and stretched a little bit beyond my comfort zone. But it was good, and it really kind of did stretch me. But those Sunday evenings for a long, long time, when I wasn't really maybe ready to face whatever was expected of me in that role. So it was maybe a little bit of a too big of a jump to make at that time. But great, I got through it and I enjoyed it, and it kind of also made me equipped for the next position or the next role. But it was difficult.
Yeah, I'm sure, right? Like it's daunting, especially. I mean, organizations are changing quite a bit now, and there is more. I can see that there's more inclusivity even in leadership teams. There are more younger people, more women, different backgrounds. But just even a few years ago, that wasn't the case, right? It was quite a big deal to sit on a leadership team when you weren't, with 15 or 20 years of experience. So that is really interesting. And one thing that I wonder about is, because we always hear that it's important to step outside your comfort zone, and the stretch is really like it helps you move forward, right? But how much of a stretch is too much of a stretch, right? Is the question that I wonder about, because on the flip side, right, if you have so much also built an anxiety over time, it could also really discourage you, or even like just from a physiological perspective, right? You may not always be prepared to really fully show up as the leader you intend to be. So did you ever have to, I don't know, did you ever have that question or that struggle of balancing between what is a good amount of stretch in your career?
Yeah, it's a great question, Nia. And I think, working in human resources and, working with talent management, you hear that word, stretch a lot, and stretch assignment. And I can just say I feel that I've been stretched, in my role now, the last few weeks. It's been a little bit of a stretch assignment to me, because it's been quite challenging. But I think early on in career, it's always great to kind of, push yourself a little bit extra. And I think that extra push is also something you need to be aware of when you kind of set out on your career and you want to say, I want a career, I want a bigger job or a bigger role, or, I want to be in this kind of organization. And that comes with a stretch. And I think sometimes of, that kind of stretch, and, stretching yourself in a career sense or in a professional sense. It's like, practicing for a running race, and, when you read running and it becomes difficult, it
Yeah.
is, you have to push yourself a little bit harder. If you're going to become better, if you're going to run faster or, a longer distance, you need to push yourself. And at one point it becomes difficult and, it becomes uncomfortable in a way. And what is that? Of course, you can feel it. It becomes uncomfortable. And the same thing in work, I think, sometimes you have to kind of get to that point when it's uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And what is that? You start feeling, oh, this is tough. And I think those are the moments also which I feel personally is when you learn and you build endurance, you build resilience, and you become better. But of course, it comes with a little bit of a pain. It's painful as well.
Yeah.
And I think in work, when you're in that moment, when it is difficult and you're stretching yourself, you also need to enjoy it, because otherwise, if you're not, it's kind of be have the negative effect on you, and you won't feel good. So that is the balance, I think. If you're too often in a stretch assignment you're not enjoying and you're actually not kind of building resilience or learning new things, I think you have to reflect on that and say, okay, ooh, what is happening now?
Hmm.
And I also think from a HR point of view that we need to make sure that people, when we give them new roles or stretch assignments, that they're actually equipped to deal with those stretch assignments, and that we think about that, and maybe not give them too soon to young people or people, to make sure that they know what's expected of them in a very transparent and open way,
Yes.
and they're ready to take on that stretch assignment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you're saying there. And it also makes me think of something that I use for myself and something that I've also been, sharing with the people I work with, right? It's the looking at your looking at the different zones in which you operate, right? So you might have your comfort zone, you might have a growing learning zone where you, as you said, right, you feel the growing pains. And I think that is something we all need to understand and appreciate, that growing does mean it's going to be painful. It's, you're training muscles, it hurts and you're going to be sore, but that's part of it, right? But then beyond that is the panic zone where, it just, excuse my language, shit hits the fan and like you don't know what's going to happen, and you're just like completely off the rails panicking. And you also don't want to go there, right? You want to be in that really great learning zone where you're stretched to the degree where you still feel you're still enjoying it, as what you said, right? And you feel like you are able to overcome it. It's going to be hard, but you can do it, right? That self-efficacy, you have that. And I think what I also liked from what you said is that ultimately you need that self-awareness, right? You need to know where you're going with that, right? It's not just about, hey, I want this next big position, without really understanding what are the expectations around it and what you can handle. But it's really also that self-awareness. So yeah, thank you also for sharing that story. I think it's also helpful for me. And
Yeah, yeah.
mhm.
Sorry, go on.
No, no,
You
go
ask.
ahead, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and I think when you build, I mean, you have to look at yourself, and whatever is kind of okay for you, and be honest and open with yourself, because I think having a career will always require your well, the requirement will always be that you push yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
And I think that that's also to be honest and transparent with that. You cannot be in your comfort zone and think you're going to have a great career. Now, that how do you define a great career? But to push yourself to the next level, I think that again, thinking about running and pushing yourself to the next level. I mean, it's the same with a career. I mean, it's going to come with a certain amount of kind of pressure and pain. Maybe we can use the word pain,
pain. Yeah,
being uncomfortable, for, a longer period of time, and then kind of, say, okay, but that is kind of huge step also, and I grow with that, and enjoy it.
absolutely. And I love this because you already asked the question that I wanted to ask you next. What does make a great career in the end, right? And I would love to get your take on that question.
Yeah, I think, it is a big question. And I think, and again, in a traditional sense, you probably think of career is actually when you progress, and so you get a bigger job, um, or go into a bigger organization, or you also kind of link it to compensation, so that's kind of climbing the ladder, so to speak. But what is it? I think to a lot of people, it's also what's in society, to have a successful career. We talk about it, and everybody's dazzled, when they get, they see the opportunity to get a, bigger title, or, more money, or whatever it is, and they, think, oh, great, I'm in my career now, and, you can see it moving. But I think always that comes with, a downside as well. It has disadvantages every time you move up, unless, if you're not ready or whatever, but the requirements and expectations, that come with the next move, it will always be that way. And are you okay with those expectations and what will be required of you? I mean, it comes with sacrifices. I think that's what I've learned as well, from my career anyway, and my personal point of view.
And I'm also, I want to dive into this topic because you brought it up, and I was waiting for the perfect moment, but I think now it's time to dive into this topic of sacrifices. And you said that having a successful career means there's going to be pains, right? And there are also some sacrifices. So maybe my first question is, does it always need to have sacrifices?
Yeah, Neha, do you know what I think? I think yes. The answer to your question is yes, because the way I approach a career, and how I see it, is that to become really good at something, you need to invest a lot of time in it. It doesn't matter what it is. Most things you need to spend a lot of hours on it to actually become really good at it.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with your career. You need to invest a lot of time and energy into becoming really good and having a career. I don't think there's any way around it. So with that, I mean, I say you need to invest time in your work. And we all know we only have a limited amount of time in our lives, in our day, and you just need to kind of put more of those hours into work. And that means you're going to sacrifice time that you could spend on something else. So, yes, I think it comes with sacrifices in terms of what you put time into. But again, I think it's necessary, because if you want to become really, really good at something, you need to kind of work hard at it and spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah. It's ultimately it's what you prioritize in life, right? It's yeah. And what were some of the sacrifices that you had to make?
Oh, yeah, good question. And I think when I reflect on it, and when I think about it in, where I am today, at this point in life, I mean, I see I have made sacrifices, and sometimes it might be okay that I made those sacrifices, but and then sometimes I can maybe not so much okay with the fact that I made sacrifices. But I think, to answer your question, I think I sacrificed precious time with my girls. I have three girls. They're 11, 13, and 15 today. So I think I sacrificed a lot of precious time they could have spent with my girls and my family, and my friends. And I think I only realized that. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story as well. I went to a leadership retreat, a few years ago. And it was one of those leadership retreats. I've done many of those kind of leadership development, meetings or whatever, but this was a leadership retreat that kind of really stayed with me, and it made me reflect and rethink, and maybe look at the sacrifices that I had made. And the exercise that we did at this leadership retreat, it was very powerful, and it really kind of hit home. It kind of kind of sat with me for a long, long time, and kind of it really made me uncomfortable again with what I discovered. But the exercise that we did at this leadership retreat was to actually um, the exercise, the topic was to write your own obituary. So imagine you're actually dead, it's a bit bizarre, but actually
Yeah.
dead, and you're at your own funeral, and you have to kind of write, a speech to people, and it's actually writing the speech as they would have said it. So you had to pick different people, and I picked my children, I picked friends, I picked my colleagues, and then I picked my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And what it was is, we actually, if I'm no longer here, what would my friends say about me? What would my children say about me, and my husband and colleagues? And doing that, it became very obvious to me that, probably, again, speaking for my children, they would have said, yeah, mom, you were a great mom, but we just wished you would have spent more time with us, or um, you're always quite busy, or somewhere else and traveling and all that. And
Mm-hmm.
I think they would say, we love you and we admire you and you were a great role model. We just wish that you would have spent more time at home and maybe more time with us. So I think with that, made me realize that I actually sacrificed time with them, and same with my family, my husband, with friends, because I gave up time that I could have had with them and spent with them, but I put it into work instead. And at the time, I very, very much enjoyed it. So it was, something, I didn't see it as a sacrifice. But now, stepping back years later, and doing that exercise, I realized, okay, but it was a sacrifice. But I could have done other things, with them, or with my mom and dad, or with friends. My friends hardly saw me for many, many years because I didn't have time to kind of see
Yeah.
them. And is that a great friend? Am I a great friend then? And is this okay? Is it okay now, or do I want to change it? So yes, again, I think it was a bit of a sacrifice, for sure, and it is a sacrifice.
Wow, that's a really powerful exercise. Yeah. It also makes me wonder, what would people say? And it just makes things really, yeah, obvious, right? Where you've been spending your time, and I don't know, that must have been really hard getting that
But at the time,
realization.
I actually didn't realize. I think I didn't think about it in that way. But there was a few instances in my career when I actually felt that I wasn't a great mom, maybe, and that's where it hit home. And I remember we lived abroad for a number of years as a family, and my girls got the opportunity to go to an international school. And they always came home and they spoke about these moms who brought in these amazing cupcakes to school, And my girls were there saying, Mom, can we also make, these beautiful cupcakes and bring into school? And I said, absolutely. I will, when I have time and when I can help you. And I know these kind of, a lot of, the moms, were not working. They were not career moms. They were actually stay at home moms. So they probably had a lot of time to make perfect, beautiful cupcakes. But anyway, I remember my girls, they were so kind of, yes, mom, can we please do that as well? And then it came to the opportunity when my youngest daughter had the chance to bring in cupcakes to school. And it was her time to kind of bring them in. But I wasn't at home. I was out traveling. As I was a lot of 50% of the time I wasn't at home, and so I couldn't make the cupcakes. I wasn't there to kind of help her to do the cupcakes. But I came up with this great idea, and I said, maybe your older sister can help you make the cupcakes. And she said, yeah, 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 that's fine. And her older sister said, yeah, I'll make the cupcakes. And I was like, good. It kind of so I solved that. I couldn't do it, but her sister could. So the next day, I actually was at home. So I brought my youngest daughter to school with her cupcakes again. Uh, and she was quite happy about the cupcakes. And I was like, yes, she has the cupcakes and we'll bring them in. Then it turns out I asked her, after the school day was over, I said, so how did you get on with the cupcakes? Were they happy? Were your friends at school happy that you brought in cupcakes? And she said, yes, mom. They were happy that I brought in the cupcakes, but do you know what, mom? They didn't taste particularly good, and they were really, really hard.
Yeah.
And I was there, oh no. And it wasn't so much that again, but I kind of, felt oh my God, I should have tasted the cupcakes, I should have tried, and seen that they were okay. But I didn't even have time to kind of taste the cupcakes or kind of put enough focus on her bringing in the cupcakes and making sure that they were okay, the cupcakes. So,
Right.
and I was thinking, oh my God, that's like, because my focus was so much on work, I wasn't there to make the cupcakes. And then in the morning when we brought them in, I should have tried to make sure that they were those great cupcakes that she really wanted. So at that point in time, I felt, oh my God, that was not great. I
Mm.
mean, and also kind of made me reflect, where do I put my focus and energy and time? And it was one of those important moments where I actually felt that that kind of sacrifice wasn't okay, or where my focus was at the time. So it's that I call it the cupcake story, because that also kind of made me a bit grounded, and it's like, now let's think about this the next time. So it's the cupcake story.
It's the cupcake story. Ah, I like that. I just wonder, like so I have a question, but I also don't want to ask you the question because I feel like, so my question, and I will just go with it. Like I will just go download my thoughts on you, right? So the question I want to ask you now is like, how did you reconcile those two identities of, being a mom and being a really successful career woman, right? And what did you do from there when you had this realization that this is about a sacrifice? And the reason why I'm struggling to ask you this question is because I feel like this question is overwhelmingly asked to women. And I just feel like this question does not really show up, or the discourse around this topic is very thin when we talk to men, right? Like, how often do we ask them, what is the sacrifice you need to make at home versus the career? So that's what I'm grappling with right now. Like, on the one hand, I really want to know, like, what did you do? Because this is something that a lot of, I guess, women face, to make that choice. And sometimes I also feel like that choice becomes a non-choice when this question is only, or this topic is reserved for women. So having downloaded that, like, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, no, again, I think, it is different depending on what kind of society you're in or what country you're in. I think Sweden is a very good place to be when it comes to parental leave. And I think the role of the dad, and dads taking parental leave, or paternity leave, it's much better, the whole setup we have, so that helps, and I think a lot more dads in the Nordic countries actually take paternity leave, but of course, yeah, they're faced with the same dilemma of kind of sacrifice. And I think, and I'm not always sure it's a kind of a gender thing, with men, women. I think it's sacrifices. You still sacrifice, for career, again, coming back to, because you invest so much time in it, and you spend so much time in work or in a work setting, that you actually do sacrifice, other things. It doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man, because, it's again, time that you spend in work that you don't spend on other things. So men sacrifice just as much as women do. But I think, if you think about it, you sacrifice time with your family and your children, maybe. I think that's, another thing. And that's again coming back to the traditional society. And maybe women is, more, maybe you ask women more that, because of the traditional roles that we play. Women take care of the family or the children, and the husband has a career and goes to work, so to speak, keep on working, even though if you build a family and start a career and all that. But I don't know, I hope to think, that it's not only about that, but it's more about personal choices you make. I think men can make that personal choice to stay at home, but they don't do as often, even if they can. And I think it's got to do with society, and maybe the setup we have, and
Yeah.
the more historical kind of thinking around the gender roles and what we do and what we can do and so on.
Yeah.
But
Because
for me, yeah, sorry, for me it was never a problem. I think I have a very supportive husband. Actually, he's always supported me and helped me, and to a certain degree, helped me to have a career. And he probably played that role, taking more time, spending more time with the family, taking a bigger role to kind of care for the family while the girls were young and so on. And he worked part time, and he gave up, his career when we moved abroad. He stopped working, and he was a stay at home dad, which obviously helped me and made it easier. And it was good for the whole family. For sure.
yeah.
And it didn't matter so much if it was me or him, So that was the dad staying at home and taking maybe the more traditional, role of a woman, what a woman would do. But he was, that was the dad. And he enjoyed that. And
Yeah.
he was very happy with that choice.
That is really amazing, and I think it's so important to hear some of those stories like that, because it's ultimately, you're right, it's about personal choice, right? But when you sort of put women in the box of taking care of family and everything, you also take away the choice from men to do that same job, right? That they might enjoy more as well. So I love that you had this that you have the supportive partner, and you had that, conversation about who does this when, and what's good for the family overall. um, and that really makes me happy, because the culture that I come from is overwhelmingly traditional. You really expect the women to do everything, right? Like, to take care of the family. And now that women are entering the workforce, um, it's also about them making it big in the workforce. So what troubles me is that you see, when you look at burnout statistics, there's a huge burnout gap right now, where women, because they're just taking care of family, especially during COVID times, I think that those roles had been reinforced. So it's really positive to hear those stories of compromise and co-parenting and sharing and doing what's best for the family unit overall. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I think, you have to kind of be open and, authentic, in a way to, open, and be honest. Maybe that's the word, to yourself. And women, what I would say, or to everyone, you can't have it all. You cannot have it all. I'm convinced of that. And I think a lot of women, they want to go out and have a career. They're going to be a perfect mom, and, they're going to do all those great things. But I don't think it's possible. And that's why I think the problem is, to a certain extent, do you not, honest to yourself, and, to say, I can't have it all. Because a lot of women, they want to be perfect and do it all,
Yeah.
but it's not going to work. I think, it's just too much. So you have to make a choice. And it might sound tough, but I mean, I made a personal choice to probably, spend more time, invest more time in my career than, I did in being at home or being a perfect mom. Maybe I wasn't a perfect mom. I was, a really, really good mom. That's not, but if you ask around, and they say, what is a perfect mom? That's probably maybe more someone who stays at home then and spends more time at home. Than I did.
Or
And I
the
think
reverse, right? You might also say someone who's role modeling a really successful career. So I guess you could never get it right, right?
no, it's difficult, but I mean, I think you can't have it both. You can't do both. I think you have to make a choice, and it's tough. It's super tough. And I actually asked one of my girls, and I said, do you wish that your mom had stayed, that I would have stayed home more when you were young, and she said, yes, I do, mom. I mean, I did miss you a lot when you were gone. You worked so much, and you were traveling, so I do wish, but it doesn't matter really, she said, because I think you're really happy when you work, and I think you're really good at what you do. And I love you just the same, she said. It
Oh,
doesn't change, how much I love you or what I think about you. But she said, yeah, it would have been nice if you had stayed home more.
that is so heartwarming.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we can't have it all. And I guess why is that even the pursuit, right? Why do we want to have it all? If ultimately you have it all and you lose yourself in the process, is that any good? Right. So, yeah.
No, and I think, you really have to say to yourself, do I want to kind of do this or do I not? Because you think, again, it sounds great to get a new job and whatever, but it comes with expectations, and be ready for that. Don't think you can work normal hours when you get into a very kind of challenging position or a senior position. I mean, it's very rare that you can work, normal hours and just kind of do, the, what you used to do in the past, being in comfort zone. I mean, I think that it comes with stretch. And are you ready for that? Are you ready for the sacrifices? And then have that honest dialogue with yourself before you get into it, and then you regret it.
Yeah, yeah. And from your perspective, Marie-Louise, as you're also the CHRO of your company and you've had a number of years in HR, what is it that people in HR or business leaders or people with influence in the company can do to sort of help people navigate this, these choices, the sacrifices and everything? Because it does, also in your story, in hindsight, you realized about the sacrifice that you made, right? It wasn't in the process. Is there something you or other people in organizations with influence can do to create that level of agency and choice while people are going through their careers?
No, I think, from a HR point of view, I think what we need to have is the kind of career dialogue, to have that development discussion in an open, authentic way, and be honest about the upside, and the downside. There's advantages and disadvantages of moving into a new role, and I think that's, be transparent and say this is, what we expect of you. I also think, from a HR point of view, when we talk about talent management and succession planning, make sure that we don't push people into senior roles too soon. And, you have to kind of work at it. It's like, it's a thing that, you need to do over time. You build stamina and resilience and endurance again. It's like with running. It takes time to build that fit, that you're fit enough to take that role. Like with running, am I fit enough to run, a 10K race, or, a marathon, a half marathon? Am I fit enough? It's going to take time. I need to practice. It's the same with work. You need to practice, and it takes time, and then you're ready to take it on. And I think from a talent management perspective, that we are clear about, equipping people who are ambitious and want to take a next step. They have the right skills and competencies, to come into that role, and they're ready for that stretch, and they have that ambition also to do it. And like, again, be transparent. It's going to come with sacrifices.
Yes.
If I say, it's going to require more of you. You're going to be pushed out of your comfort zone, and it might hurt at times, and it might be uncomfortable. Are you ready for it? And I think most people are, they say, yes, I am. And it's going to be super rewarding.
I like that, right? You said we need to have that honest dialogue about the sacrifices, and we need to build endurance and really equip people so that when they do say that they're ready for that opportunity, that they're ready, right? They're fitting, they're fit enough to run. Um, I guess the thing that sometimes throws people off course, when they're thinking about what they need to do in their career, what's right for them in that moment, right? Which may not always be necessarily right for everyone else around them, is what we see online, right? And I guess this, with social media on the rise, you just have a lot of information being thrown at you as a person about what's good, about what is successful, about what makes you happy. And you see on LinkedIn, on Instagram, a lot of different stories of how people are just, climbing mountains, being awesome at everything. And I feel like it's a one-sided picture, because there's that whole other story of the sacrifices that you needed to make, which I don't know if it's getting enough of a spotlight or a discussion. So my question is, how can we find the truth through all of that noise, through the facade that we see on social media? And yeah, how can we really be informed of what decisions we want to make in our lives?
Yeah, it's a super good question. I think, again, referring back to LinkedIn and things like that, people are so happy, and rightly so. I think it's great that you celebrate that you got a new job or your achievements, and whatever you've accomplished in work. You want to share and get recognition, or share the recognition that you have been given. So I think it's good, but I think also all the things that we see, again, it has a darker side. I think, again, that's what people don't talk about. They don't talk about the sacrifices they made in order to kind of get to the position they are at the moment, or difficult choices they made in life, that really had a maybe negative impact on them, but it was required in order for them to get to where they are today. So I think career and all this kind of LinkedIn posts and everything, of course it comes with a price, and everybody has can totally tell their story around that. What was the price for me in order to get here? What did I have to do? What kind of if you want to use again sacrifices that I make, or how did I what things did I not do as a result of kind of getting here? So I think it could be great if we could share that and be open with it and say this is what was needed for me in order to get here. And again, we have personal stories and personal career journeys, so probably a lot of them look different. But I think again, what I've seen 20 years in HR, I think I can still say I know that having a career comes with sacrifices, and you give up things because time is limited. We only have 24 hours in a day, and if you spend more time on work, in the office or out of office or on business trips and in hotels, whatever, if you're not at home, you can't spend it on things in your home environment. You spend it in work,
Yeah.
and then you've given up something. But maybe that's okay. But yeah, those are the stories that we should share as well, so people can make an educated decision whether to take a bigger job or to actually do something else. So to say, what's the trade-off here? What is it that I get, and what is it I kind of give up?
Yeah. And I like that, right? Also the focus on what is it that you're getting, because the sacrifice, the word, it just connotes a feeling of loss, right? You just lost something. But it's actually, if you look at it the other way, you're actually gaining more time for something else, right? So what do you get and what do you give up? I like that. And I like what you said also about the stories, right? And I'm just super happy and grateful that you could share your story so courageously about the sacrifices that you made, because I think it's really important for people to know that other side of a successful career, right? And yeah, and just know what is the trade-off, what is the sacrifice, and how to get there. So thank you so much, Marie-Louise, for this conversation.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, so we are almost at the end of our conversation, and but before I let you go, Marie-Louise, I also would like to know from you, what is your call to action to those of us listening?
Good question, really good question. And, I spent, the time with you here today. And what I want to say is that I love working, and I'm proud of what I've done. And I really do love working and having a career. My career has been, really, really rewarding. And I also want to say all to people right there, maybe early in their career or mid career, whatever, it is fantastic. And I think of those starting out on their career journey, I mean, that the advice I could give is, take risks, have the courage to try new things, say yes more than no. I mean, look at the opportunities, say, yes, I'm going to do it, take the chance and do it. Don't rush your career. I think allow it to take some time, and ensure you pack your backpack. I usually kind of say it's a backpack. You need a backpack full of the right stuff, in order to make the trip, that journey. Make sure that you're prepared for the journey. So pack your backpack with the right things, and that comes, with experiences and whatever the skills you need. And I think also allow for unsuccessful stops in your career. You kind of look at that stop, that career stop wasn't great, but I learned something from it. So allow for unsuccessful stops. It's okay. Then be true to yourself. I think, what is it you want? I gave up time with my family, the family I love, but it was okay for me. And, it's not a right or wrong, but it was a personal choice that I made, and it was okay for me. Um, but also enjoy building your career. It is fun, and have fun. And I think, when you enjoy something, you become good at it. So remember, just enjoy what you're doing, and then you will get that career, and then you will enjoy it.
I love that. I love that a lot. Before I let you go, I do want to ask you to complete one sentence. So, The sentence is, when I drop my armor, ...
When I drop my armor, I rarely drop my armor. I think I need my armor in my job, actually. To be the CHRO, or to be, where I am. I think I need my armor. Sorry. But maybe I should say, okay, being vulnerable. Maybe it's around being vulnerable. I drop my armor at home, I think, with my family. That's when I drop my armor.
I think it's interesting to know when you need an armor, right? Because that also gives you some information of why you might need it and what you might do with it. But yeah, okay. But you drop your armor at home. That's really nice. All right, then thank you so much, Marie-Louise. This was lovely. And yeah, I hope we can continue this conversation also offline, because for me, personally speaking, it's just very interesting to just know more about this topic and talk through it with you.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you for the opportunity.